everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by the dynamic Joe Fordyce. We have a special interview with Danny Briere coming up in this episode. Taryn and I were able to sit down with him the other day, and we're also going to talk about the current team. With Danny Briere, we got into the alumni game, which is coming up on November 15th. He will be playing in it. And then we also got into this current 2021-22 Flyers team and why Danny Briere really likes what the offseason did for the Flyers and why this team is a little different than what we've seen in years past. So we'll have all that coming up. But Joe, let's start with the most recent game. The Flyers lose their first Metropolitan Division game of the season, a 3-2 overtime decision in Pittsburgh. Joe, I think there's some debate about whether this was a good game for the Flyers or not. On one side of the coin, you can say, yes, they got a point up in Pittsburgh. They forced overtime. They never led in that game, but were able to get a point on the road. They're 5-2 now. Not bad. But at the same time, I couldn't help but think that Pittsburgh was severely shorthanded. They're missing Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Brian Rust, among many others. They don't even have their head coach on the bench. A lot of that's because of COVID-19 and the situation they're dealing with in Pittsburgh. And the Flyers can't find a way to win that game. How did you feel about it?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you look maybe in April, when you look back and go, oh, well, they got a point in Pittsburgh, on the surface, that looks like a good point. I don't think in the moment it's can be taken that way. I'm more on the side of what you were just saying about, this is a team where Jeff Carter was the first line center. And it's not to knock Carter, but I would like to know the last time Jeff Carter played on the first line regularly. I mean, it might be when he was in Philadelphia. That's not the kind of player he is right now. He's still a very good player, but no Crosby, no Malkin, no Brian Rust, as you said. No Brian Dumoulin, who Brian Dumoulin has probably been their best defenseman when they play the Flyers over the last few years.
Yeah.
And that's always huge when he's out of the game for them. No, I don't take good feelings out of last night's game. And outside of the depleted factor for the Penguins, I will also say that there were long stretches of this game where the Flyers did not have good offensive pressure. And Taryn and Scott Hartnell talked about it on the postgame show last night. You look at Tristan Jarry's numbers from that game and you go, okay, he made a lot of saves. What were the quality of shots?
Yeah.
Because at one point, I know I looked at Scott and I said, Jarry has 33 saves in this game. How many of them do you remember?
Yeah.
And the answer is not a lot. I don't think these were big time quality chances that the Flyers were throwing at him last night. And, the ball started rolling down the hill 16 seconds into the game. Konechny was late getting out to the point, and then Brock McGinn deflected that puck and it kind of went from there. I do think the positive takeaways are the Flyers' defensive effort and Carter Hart. Carter Hart made some amazing saves last night because I think Pittsburgh could have been up 4-0 after the first period. And so I do take that away from this game, but I really feel like where the Flyers are right now, their problem is they have long stretches and majority of games where they don't have sustained offensive pressure or quality chances. And that's regardless of their opponent. And that to me would be the biggest concern looking at this team right now.
Carter Hart had 33 saves on 36 shots. So Tristan Jarry had more, but it sure seemed like Hart had to make higher degree, more difficult saves than Jarry. It really was. And I could not agree more, Joe. And yeah, I'm with you. I was, if I was a Flyers fan, I would have been disappointed after last night's game. One, it ended in really weird gut-wrenching fashion where you think the Carter Hart has a save in overtime. They review it, and turns out Chris Letang's wraparound attempt did clear the goal line, and it did. It was obvious via video review. And then also, I just think you really need to jump on that opportunity. The Penguins are missing their guys, their stars. If you're the Flyers, imagine if you take out Claude Giroux and Sean Couturier, or Konechny and Couturier, or Giroux and Konechny, and then see where you are. You probably are saying to yourselves, yeah, you know what? Don't love our chances here. And they still lose this game to Pittsburgh. I think that was a chance to really grab 2 points early on in the first of 4 matchups against your rival, and they didn't even have a lead in the game. But I will say, Joe, I think one of the biggest storylines so far in the early season, among all these new faces and talking about these new guys, Carter Hart looks like the Carter Hart of old, and that's huge. He really looks like himself again, and I think that should bode well for the remainder of the season. But Joe, I think Flyers fans can also understand that they are missing Ryan Ellis and Kevin Hayes too. So, both teams are missing key pieces, but I just still felt like that was a chance for the Flyers to jump on 2 points.
Yeah, it was. And one of the things I'll bring up is I feel like this power play looks very stagnant with Provorov at the point. I really like Giroux on the wall with the right-handed shots that he's passing to now with Konechny and Atkinson, but I really, really think, I mean, now obviously they want Ryan Ellis back, but if Ryan Ellis misses another game or two, I really would like to see what Keith Yandle can do at the point on that top power play, because I just feel like everything from that quarterback point position on the top power play when Provorov is there, everything moves slow, and it gives the opponent the chance to set up the box and how they want to play the power play. And the puck doesn't move quick enough. It really doesn't. And what you find is you really find Giroux quarterbacking the power play from the half wall.
Yeah.
I think you need that extra spot at the top where there's decisive movement with the puck when it gets there. It's on the stick and it's off the stick. And I don't see that with Provorov. So obviously we're all hoping for Ryan Ellis to be back as quick as possible. But if he's not, I would love to see Keith Yandle at the top on that top power play and give that a look and see if that can maybe jumpstart some offense for this team. We've seen in the past AV is a guy that doesn't hesitate to tinker, and I'm kind of puzzled why he hasn't done that already. So we'll see. Maybe, who knows? Maybe tomorrow's the game where he tries that if Ryan Ellis is out. But with them changing the designation to week this week, one would think he's probably not playing tomorrow. But I don't know that.
No, he's not playing tomorrow. He is out. He did not go.
Okay.
Yep. So he is ruled out. So he will miss his 7th straight game.
Okay. All right. So then, maybe that's the maybe that's the opportunity where you try Yandle at the top there.
Yep.
And see what that looks like. Just give that a look and see what it looks like.
Yep. Flyers Talk is brought to you by Great Railing. Stop into Great Railing for the highest quality and lowest prices on all your railing, decking, and fencing needs. Well, like we said, we had Danny Briere this week. Got to talk about the alumni game coming up in November, what it's all about, the ticket proceeds and everything. And then also got Danny Briere's take on these current Flyers. Let's get right into that interview. We hope you guys enjoy. We are absolutely thrilled to be joined by the Mr. Playoffs, Danny Briere. Danny, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Jordan. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure talking Flyers hockey.
Always great to talk Flyers hockey with you, Danny. We're going to chat a little bit about the upcoming Flyers alumni game in November, talk a little bit about the current Flyers. So we'll get right into it. Danny, we haven't had an alumni game in Philadelphia since 2017. With the fans and the camaraderie between the alumni, is that what makes it so special to have these alumni games?
Yes, for us, alumni, ex-players, that's probably the part that we miss the most. Being around the guys, traveling with the guys, always being together. You get to, during the hockey season, you spend more time amongst yourselves than you do with your own family. So it's kind of cool to get back together for a night or two.
Now, I have a question for you, Danny, in terms of, we see you out on the ice with the team, practicing with Ryan Ellis and Kevin Hayes the other day, the injured guys. if you're a guy who everyone expects is on the ice all the time, do you feel like there's an added pressure coming into this that you're going to be one of the sharper players out on the ice? Do you feel that going into this one?
Yeah, it's a little scary because when I firstly retired, it was I was just coming off the ice. I had that confidence going still. Now I'm seeing guys retire after me. And joining our alumni games, I'm thinking of Scott Hartnell and Nick Schultz, especially. So it's getting tougher and tougher to get going and to keep up. So I hope I have another year or two, hopefully, that I can make some plays. After that, it's going to get really tough.
Jordan, before we get to your next question, I just want to mention, guys, that the alumni game, November 15th, you can either go to wellsfargocenterphilly.com, find tickets there, or if you have Twitter, go to the Flyers alumni page. There's a link in bio. It's Lindros, Leclaire, Howe, Leach, Joe Watson, Scott Hartnell's playing in it. That should be interesting. Gagne, I mean, there's a ton of Darian Hatcher just announced that he'll be there too. So there is a ton of people playing in this game. So it's wild how close the Flyers alumni are, how many people stay here, Danny. What is it about the South Jersey area that guys who even go to other teams afterwards seem to migrate back this way once they retire?
Well, first of all, we have to give a lot of credit to Brad Marsh for what he's doing with the alumni being in charge. Also, it's just been ingrained in this organization for so long now. We go back to Mr. Snyder when he would always say, once you're a Flyer, you're always a Flyer. There's that sense of family that is still there to this day that, the new regime with Comcast Spectacor has brought on. So it's really cool. Players love coming back, or if, a lot of them are still in the area, live here. A lot are still involved with the team. So we're very spoiled. When I look around the league, there's not very many alumni as strong as the Flyers is.
And all ticket proceeds will benefit Flyers charities and the Flyers Alumni Association, two groups that do awesome stuff within the community. So it's a great cause as well. And it kicks off a real fun time as Rick Tokic and Paul Holmgren go into the Flyers Hall of Fame the next night. Danny, there is a special VIP ticket package where fans will have a special happy hour event with the Flyers alumni.
Right.
What do you enjoy most about interacting with Flyers fans and getting to hear their passion?
You know what's cool? It's when they come to you and they say, "Oh, I remember this game. You did that in that game, and you were there, and you fought this guy. You scored a goal here." I think that's the memories that it brings back when you talk to the fans that were at some of the games that they remember. They were watching with their family during the 2010 playoffs, or they were at the rink, during Game 7 when we played in Boston. And I hear so many stories of fans showing up here at the Wells Fargo while we played Game 7. In Boston. So there's so many cool stories. It just bring back so many great memories.
Do you, just on the note of that 2010 team, do you ever still get stressed thinking about it? Because as a fan at the time, as a fan in high school in that prime sports watching age, I still get stressed when I think about that last game of the season, the Boston series, and then obviously the Stanley Cup final. What is it like from a player's perspective to reflect back on all of that now?
You know what? As a player, there wasn't a lot of stress. We were in the moment, and when you have some kind of control over the outcome, it's a lot less stressful. I think the stress was probably before games. Obviously, game 82 going into it, you're stressed going into the game. But once the game starts, you don't really think about the stress, and you're just going about your business, and you have some kind of say over the outcome. So you're focusing on that. You're focusing on what you have to do. Same thing, with Game 7. I still remember Game 7 in Boston in that series where we made the comeback. I was so angry in the first period when we were down 3-0. I couldn't believe how hard we had worked to get all the way back. And now it was our time, and we blew it in the first 10 or 12 minutes of the first period. I was more angry. There's no stress at the moment. And then slowly we're able to climb back in. And then you realize now we have a chance, and the focus is all on what you have to do. So you don't really you're not stressed in the moment.
It's so interesting to me because I was interviewing Paul Holmgren the other day about the flashes that he gets when he looks back on his career, how things kind of come to you like pictures in a movie or something. And he was talking to me about his first game and missing a wide open net, and he still sees the net and it looks like it's the size of a soccer net to him. And I can remember talking to you during the 2020 COVID pause on the 10-year anniversary of the 2010 run. And the way you talk about these games that happened even 10 years ago, it's like it happened 5 minutes ago. It never really seems like it leaves you.
Hey, correct. I still feel that way. I still feel like 2010 happened, a few months ago. We were, the emotion that are involved in those games are so deep that they don't leave you. I still remember standing at center ice in game 82 before the shootout. People will ask me, what did you feel? What were you thinking? What was going through your mind? Could you hear the crowd? And I tell them, the one thing I don't remember is what the crowd was doing. I was so focused on what I had to do. I remember for a second thinking, I have to score just to get in the playoffs. And then I was able to erase that thought and focus on Lundqvist, focus on what I had to do. I knew exactly the move that I wanted to make. So it's funny. I remember like it was yesterday, but I don't remember what the crowd was doing. I don't know if they were up. I don't know if they were screaming or if it's silence. That part I don't remember.
That is wild. I love Philadelphia in the morning, guys, don't you? Sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
That was the goal horn sounding off.
Yeah, that was Danny's goal horn. Yep.
Yeah. Danny, Taryn mentioned Scott Hartnell. She has the pleasure of working with him now. You had the pleasure of playing with him. Are you pretty excited to see him back on the ice?
Oh yeah, Scott's one of my favorite teammates of all time. And honestly, I think the Flyers missed him after he was traded from here. That's kind of when the Flyers started to go downhill. His presence around the team, he's just a fun-loving guy. He keeps it loose. You need guys like him around the dressing room, and we're seeing that back a little bit now when you look at adding guys like Keith Yandel and Cam Atkinson, Kevin Hayes a couple years ago. Like those guys bring an energy to the team that we were missing there for that little gap in the last 5 or 6 years.
How can you explain? I mean, I understand it, but can you explain why that is so important? Because I've talked to Lappy about it. I know Lappy was kind of one of those lighter glue guys, and Lappy told me, that 2018-2019 season when there were a million goalies and it was going downhill and Ron got fired and Dave Haxtell got fired, there wasn't that. And then all of a sudden they pick up Kevin, and the next year you lose a few games and it doesn't feel like the end of the world. And I think sometimes when I talk to fans about the team and what I see, and I'm just an outsider also, it's palpable how important someone like Kevin, Cam, or Keith can be.
Yeah, the energy that they bring is, I mean, there's days where it's a grind, and when you're not winning, it's not all fun and games, and you're not going to the rink happy, and it's a drag, and everybody in the organization is mad. The coaches are mad at you. The players don't want to be there because they know it's miserable. When you have guys that can kind of change the mood and make fun of what's going on in the situation that they're in, kind of like Lappy did, Scott Hartnell did. We were missing that for a few years, and I think now we have a group a little bit more like that. You can't have 20 guys that are going to be cheery every day, because now you wouldn't go very far. You have guys like Claude Giroux and Sean Couturier who are way more serious and they lead the way, but you need help around them to keep things loose as well. So you need a mix of different personalities, and I felt like the last few years that's kind of what we were missing.
Yeah, real busy off season for Chuck Fletcher. If you include the 2 waiver pickups that they've had, they have 9 new faces now on this Flyers team. Danny, you've been around the new look team a good bit. What have you thought about the makeup of the group? You've touched on a lot of it, but do you think there's a potential for a playoff run?
Oh, definitely. I like this team way better. I mean, it starts in goal, obviously. I think Carter Hart is in a better position. I think he's playing a lot more confidence early in this season. I think he's got Jones behind him that can offer support, probably play a lot more games if need be, hopefully not, but than what we had in the past. And you look up what I like the most. We talked about the energy around the team. I like how more physical we are. I think we're a tougher team to face and to play against as well. And that makes your player feel a lot bigger, even for, smaller guys like Cam Atkinson or Joel Farabee and Travis Konechny. Now, when you have size around you, you'll feel a lot better. You'll feel a lot bigger going onto the ice, and you're not going to be as I wouldn't, afraid is the wrong word, but you're going to be a little bit more willing to go and muck it up in the corner and take pucks to the net and take a beating in front of the net when you know that the same thing is happening at the other end of the ice if the other team's trying to take liberties. So that's what I like probably most about this team.
So on that note then, given the analytics of it all and all the conversation that comes with it, you take the Ristolainen trade because it seems like all the other new guys that came in immediately, well, it helps when Cam and Derek Brassard are on a line together and they're playing lights out, and then Martin Jones comes in and gets a big win against Boston. It seems like he's the last one that they're warming to now. But what have been your thoughts on what he adds? Because that was, of all the moves Chuck made in the summer, that was probably the one that garnered the most discussion.
Yes. And it's so funny because to me, he's a typical Flyer player. He makes it miserable on the other team. And I get it. The analytics don't like his numbers, but I think sometimes we forget what he really brings. And if I'm on the ice, if I'm on his team, I feel a lot bigger. I feel a lot more comfortable, confident out there. I know if the other team is going to the front of our net, they're going to pay the price, and I like that. And in return, I'm going to be willing to go to the front of the net at the other end of the ice, because it's going both ways. He makes you feel bigger. He makes the other team feel a little smaller. And it's you can't really translate that into analytics. That's where we miss sometimes. There's a lot of good things with analytics, but there's things that they're just not picking up yet, and that's one of them. And that's an example of a player that really helps, but sometimes it doesn't really clearly show on paper.
Well, he's a +1 the other night, so we're trending in the right direction here.
That's a good sign. But yeah, I'm really excited about him, and he's in a way better spot than I think he was in Buffalo, where he had to play against the top players every night. He comes to a team here where he's on a second pairing. Maybe he plays against the second and third line. He doesn't have to do as much of the grind work that he had to do in Buffalo. Maybe not quite as much ice time also. So I think he's just in a better chair to be successful here.
Well, and it is interesting because Jordan, we've talked about this as well. Again, because he's everyone else came on like gangbusters and he starts the season injured. And we had both talked about it. It's almost bizarre the way we grew up that he's the one that takes warming to, because if he works out, he is what all of the Flyers fans who want that old school big body physicality. He's the player they've been grieving for forever and haven't had since like Pronger. The problem is that the standard is probably Chris Pronger, who was the last one who did it. So it's very interesting.
And if you look, you look at the playoffs last year, you look at, the Tampa Bay Lightning winning the Stanley Cup, we think of a small scale team, but when you look at their defense, they had probably the biggest defense in the league, or one of the biggest. You look at who they played in the Stanley Cup finals, the Montreal Canadiens, they weren't that great in the regular season. They had, a really big defense, a little slower, not great analytics numbers, but they get to the playoffs and it's a different game. They're tougher to play against, and they got to the Stanley Cup final. I look at our team now, adding Ristolainen and adding like a Patrick Brown, McEwen on the fourth line. It just makes us tougher to play against, and I don't. That's why I'm excited. If we can get to the playoffs, I think we could be a dangerous team.
Jordan, the analytics staff from the Flyers is never going to let Danny back on our podcast.
Yeah. No, I know they're not going to like me.
I'm sure Danny gets along with them. I know he gets along with all Flyers fans. Danny, kind of to finish us off here, how nice is it to see two more members go into the Flyers Hall of Fame? We haven't had that in a little while. It seems like it brings everyone together. How nice is that for you and for everyone?
Oh, it's awesome. And what great picks. I think those two guys really transpire what Flyers is, the way they carried themselves on and off the ice, Rick Tocchet was one of my first teammates when I arrived in the NHL in Phoenix. I had the chance to play with him, learned a lot from him as a leader, how to take care of yourself off the ice as well. And I mean, Paul Holmgren is, one of my mentor. He's the one that brought me here to Philadelphia, and after my career, started me with the organization off the ice as well. So I have tremendous respect for both these guys.
Awesome. Well, Danny, thank you so much for doing this, for taking the time. We look forward to seeing you in the alumni game and at the event. Thank you so much for the time. Great stuff as always from Danny Briere. It is a real treat to hear him talk Flyers, hear him talk hockey. Always enjoyable. Talked a lot about the alumni game, Joe. I know everyone's excited for it. I'm certainly excited for it. It's really cool just to see the history and all the past players, and it's all for a good cause.
Yeah, and we had Danny Briere on the pregame show on Tuesday. We had Darian Hatcher on the pregame show on Thursday, and both players already started the friendly sort of ribbing of each other, and sort of Danny Briere saying that he had to say that he couldn't wait to play again with Scott Hartnell, and Darian Hatcher and Hartnell going back and forth about Hartnell wanting to play because Hatcher will make him look fast and things like that. And Darian, of course, is the latest name to be added to the rosters for that game on the 15th. And it certainly will be a large contingent of Flyers alumni, maybe the largest we've ever seen. And the convergence of the different eras of Flyer hockey. You'll have guys there from the 70s, a ton of guys from the Mike Keenan era, 80s Flyers teams, and then you'll have guys like Lindros and LeClaire from the 90s, and of course the guys we've been talking about here, Briere, Hartnell, Darian Hatcher, the guys from the 2000s and the 2010s. And it's sure to be a great night on the 15th. And then of course, Rick Tocchet and Paul Holmgren going into the Flyers Hall of Fame the following night before the Flyers play the Calgary Flames. So it should be a great couple days for the Flyers franchise and the fans.
Absolutely. And if fans want to see the roster of the game, if they want to check out where they can get tickets, you can go to our story on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. It's on the Flyers page. You'll see it right there. All the info you need. Should be a ton of fun. Really enjoyed Danny's insight on this current team. Joey, I found it interesting. I'm looking at the 5-2-2 record, and overall I'm thinking pretty good so far for the Flyers, considering all things, considering the injury to Ryan Ellis, considering Kevin Hayes not playing a game yet, considering all the new faces, 9 in total if you include the waiver claimed forwards. 5-2-2 is not bad. And then I look back, and last season, I remember they had a pretty positive start as well. They were 6-2-1 at this point last season. So they were actually a victory better, and we all know how last season ended. So it made me think, a season is early for a reason. And last year, obviously, only 56 games. This year, 82. So we should be patient here and understand where the Flyers are health-wise and game-wise into the season. But where do you think this team is compared to last year? I personally think it's a much better team this year. Carter Hart looks like the Carter Hart of old, as we mentioned. And I do think they're more structured and going to be more goal preventive. But what about you?
Yeah, I think they're definitely a better team. They're better in their own end. They have more goal scoring punch, and Carter Hart looks like he's back to being the Carter Hart that we expect to see, as opposed to the one who last year had tremendous struggles. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. That was not. I mean, he even said it. That's a season you kind of want to flush, and he said he wanted a fresh start this year, and it looks like that's what he's gotten. So I definitely think they're in a way better spot. But you're right, 5-2-2 is a decent start. And if you would have said, okay, this guy's going to be out, Ellis is going to miss the mini games, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and they're going to be 5-2-2. You say, okay.
Yeah.
Here's I will say my bit of caution is this. You look at the Metropolitan Division, and it appears every team in the division got better.
Yeah.
The past couple nights on pregame, we asked Al Morganti on Tuesday and Scott Hartnell on Thursday to look at the division standings and tell us, is there a team that you can basically cross off and say they are definitely not a playoff team. And both of them said maybe Columbus.
Yeah.
Columbus is currently ahead of the Flyers.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, the Devils have an up-and-coming team. The Rangers, we talked about a little bit last podcast.
Yeah.
They have an up-and-coming team. We obviously know the Penguins were in last place entering last night's game, and I don't think anybody thinks that's where they're going to be come, February, March, April. Well, I shouldn't say February. That'll be in the middle of the Olympic break. So the bigger games this season are going to happen January leading up to the break and then in March. But, I don't think anybody thinks the Penguins are going to be, cellar dwelling at that point. Can these young players that the Rangers and the Devils have sustain that? We'll see. But, I think everybody thinks Washington's going to be up there. Everybody thinks Pittsburgh will eventually be up there. Carolina is off to their best start in franchise history under former Flyer Rod Brindamore. I mean, there are no nights off in this division, and that's the problem. If you take the 5-2-2 and you put it in another division in the NHL, it looks a lot better than 5-2-2 in this current Metropolitan division. But of course, you can't do that. So I feel like both wild cards are going to end up coming out of the Metro this year. So that means 5 teams out of the Metro would be playoff teams, assuming both wild cards come out of there. And the Flyers are hanging right around that 5 zone right now. So we can sit here and say, yeah, they look better, and they do at 5-2-2, but so does everybody else, including a few teams we didn't expect to look this good. Now, again, you said the season, we call it, it's early for a reason. Buffalo's got a great record. I don't think anybody has any illusions of them being a playoff team. So, there are teams that are overachieving right now, and that generally will play itself out. So we'll see what happens, but it's early. But if the Flyers don't watch out, it could get late early too.
Very true. The Flyers and Blue Jackets had the same number of points. They have 12. The Penguins and Islanders are behind the Flyers, but I think we all
I didn't even mention the Islanders.
Right.
This is a team that's haunted the Flyers for 2 seasons.
Right. So you have to think the Penguins and Islanders are going to get their stuff together, and they're going to be right up there. And then the Devils. 7 of the 8 teams in the Metropolitan Division right now have positive goal differentials. In the other 3 divisions, there are the two of the divisions have 3 teams with positives goal differentials, and another division has 2. The Metro has 7 of 8, all in positive. It's a really good division, and I could not agree more, Joe. It is very early, and I think the Flyers can stand with a lot of the teams in the division, but it tells you really want to take advantage of opportunities like you had on Thursday night against a depleted Penguins team where they're shorthanded, they're facing some adversity early on. Take advantage of those opportunities. Really take advantage of your opportunities at home against divisional teams. So those are big games. They're 4-point games, the cliche in hockey, but they really are, and they're all going to be important. The one thing that concerns me a little bit too, Joe, is I feel like we're seeing glimpses here and there, stretches where they are giving up a lot of high quality chances where like the puck's going the other way, odd man rushes, and the Flyers just look like they're not structured, they're not tight, they're opened up, and I feel like we saw a ton of that last season. And I do think the Flyers will be better, and I think Kevin Hayes and Ryan Ellis are goal prevention guys. They are guys that are going to help them prevent goals, so they're big pieces, but there are times where a little bit of last season creeps into my mind when I see that. And again, early, but I just really think they need to be better in front of their goaltenders. They weren't last year, and it's a big reason why they finished the way they did.
Right. And so what we're looking at this year maybe is that the goalie is better, which is why they're giving up less goals.
Yeah.
Not completely the reason, but a lot of the reason why they're giving up less goals is the goaltending is much better. And, let's not forget Martin Jones has played better than anybody would have expected, I think, so far. So let's not leave that out of the equation. I do think that there are 2 guys that need to step up their game. Travis Sanheim and Ivan Provorov, I think both need to. I think both of those guys would tell you that they're not playing up to their ability currently. particularly Sanheim. I feel like he's getting. There was a couple times last night where, he's one-on-one, coming through the neutral zone with a puck carrier, and next thing you know, this guy's by him. Travis Sanheim's strength is skating. He should not be getting blown by like that. And I'm not talking. It's not Sidney Crosby blowing by you. I don't remember who it was, but it was. It's not Crosby. It's not Malkin. Those are guys where if that happens, you're like, okay, those guys are, Hall of Fame caliber players. Many of the forwards playing last night for Pittsburgh are not Hall of Fame caliber players. And, I believe now that I think about it, Evan Rodriguez is the player I was thinking of now. His strength in his game is speed. But, Sanheim his positioning seems faulty at times. And I think we've seen a little bit of that in a lot of the games this year. So I think him and Provorov definitely need to step their game up.
Absolutely. And one has to wonder if Ryan Ellis will help them all get back to themselves. Like he has that type of trickle-down effect on a lineup where everyone's slotted properly. And we've discussed that probably ad nauseum now on this podcast because Ellis has been out so long. So Ellis will not play Saturday against the Capitals. The game is at 7 p.m. Eastern time on NBC Sports Philadelphia. You can check out pre- and post-game live, produced by our very own Joe Fordyce. Ellis will not play, but the Flyers are hoping he's getting closer as they get back on the ice next Wednesday. Kevin Hayes would also be eligible to return from long-term injured reserve. Not sure if he's going to be ready to go by Wednesday, but he is getting closer. So 2 important reinforcements that can maybe shore things up, tighten things up for the Flyers. But they are 5-2-2. They do have points in 7 of 9 games. That's not too bad. But the last season that went totally awry when the Flyers allowed more goals than anyone in hockey also started well. Started 6-2-1. I will say last season, Joe, in that 6-2-1 start, their 2 regulation losses were by 6-1 margins. 6-1 scores. 2 losses, 6-1. So they started well in the win-loss column, but you look at some of those losses and they were kind of eye-opening. Like, whoa.
And one of the 6-1s was to Buffalo.
To Buffalo.
Which,
right.
It had a different feel to it for sure.
It did. Whereas the Flyers, I feel like their losses have been, I can't really say they've had any real terrible losses where you're just like, what the heck was that? The Canucks game 5-4 season opener, it goes to overtime. They weren't great, but they forced overtime. Losing the shootout. Last night, Penguins, not a terrible loss. Flames obviously was their biggest stud, a 4-0 loss. That was at the end of a road trip, a 2-1-0 road trip. So again, all perspective, and we'll have to wait and see just how different these Flyers are. Time again will tell. But Ryan Ellis and Kevin Hayes will certainly be big pieces in showing that this team is different. So we'll have to see where that takes us. But Joe, thank you so much as always. Great chatting with you. A big time thank you to Danny Briere for joining us to talk about the alumni game and these current Flyers. A major thanks to our podcast producer and guru, Ben Berry, and Flyers fans. As always, thank you for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. Wherever you get your podcasts, please rate and listen, and we cannot wait to talk to you next time.